Hey guys, welcome to the Wildest Show. I'm Upamanyu,
And I'm Meghna.
and we have got a great show planned for you. We will be talking about the US Mexico border and how development there is completely, you know, trying to affecting the wildlife there in the Madrean region. We also have with us today a topic which is, again, a very wildlife animal conflict kind of topic, but it also has a lot of cultural baggage, and we will be exploring that sort of stuff from that perspective as well. We have some more things, Meghna.
Yeah, we'll also be talking about how human conflict is actually creating unintended refugee spaces for wildlife. And we will also be talking about Africa's Great Elephant Divide, how some countries have far too many elephants and some have too few. Apart from this, as usual, we'll be discovering or talking about new discovered species and any other topics that we would be able to cover if we're as efficient as last time.
Right. Why don't we straight get into the headline topic? This is a story from National Geographic, which is titled "The Mission to Keep the Borderlands Wild." So it goes on to say the Madrean Sky Islands, a biodiverse region spanning the US Mexico border, face increasing habitat fragmentation due to human development, most notably a 250-mile border wall. This landscape, characterized by isolated mountain ranges, traditionally allowed animals like javelinas, ocelots, and jaguars to migrate freely along ridgelines and waterways, navigating diverse ecosystems. However, roads, farms, fences, and the wall itself disrupt these ancient migration routes, hindering seasonal movements and impacting wildlife. Photographer and explorer Jamie Rojo is documenting these disruptions, highlighting how development isolates animal populations. Conservationists are working to understand and mitigate these impacts, aiming to help animals navigate the increasingly fragmented borderlands. I think, and of course, our discussion question is here: how do we balance the border security with preserving these vital wildlife corridors? Um,
The problem is borders only exist for humans. They do not exist for
hmm,
animals, and we forget that they can be territorial and they may have territories, but they don't really sketch a border in the soil. Like they don't have posts and they don't have a wall. So it's sad that because of everything that we do, it affects them. So now that there's a wall in place, or there's a wall that's coming up in place, it's creating more and more problems for animals that used to use that landscape just to navigate. And now that
hmm,
landscape doesn't exist. So their ancient migratory routes or anything that they used to follow is not relevant or does not exist anymore, just because we decided to come up with a mall, because we humans cannot coexist across landscapes.
hmm. Actually, that is uh, something to think about as well. I'll just share because obviously it's a National Geographic article, so it'll have beautiful images. This is the landscape we are talking about: mountainous regions. There are rivers and streams that have carved through these mountainous regions over, thousands and thousands of years. Sort of, you can see all the rivers and streams sort of threading through this almost arid like landscape, and all along the deserts and along the streams there is some greenery that can be seen because of the life-giving water. So I think then the problem here also is because I was seeing this a few weeks ago, beginning of the year, and there was this documentary that was released while London by David Attenborough was the narrator there, and there in this heart of London there are a lot of hedgehogs that face a serious threat in the city. Now, what they have found, the hedgehogs have found that one of their favorite foods, slugs, are very much abundant in private gardens. Now, they venture into private gardens, but again, each private garden will have a wall in between them, like a boundary wall. Even if it's how the neighbors are generally in like houses and stuff, they cannot navigate in between those two gardens. So what a lot of people where hedgehog concentrations are high have done is created these little hedgehog highways, so little holes in the walls, through which hedgehogs can travel through. And this is similar to wildlife passes or anything that exists because of these to solve exactly these kinds of problems. But here the problem is this wall has to be impenetrable. Like there cannot exist any kind of highway or hole or anything that, if a jaguar can travel through it, then a human will be able to travel through it
Yeah,
also.
I was going to say the same thing that a hedgehog is different, but if we are going to keep the whole as open for a
No,
jaguar, then
even we can't open in this wall, in this particular wall. I don't think anyone would be open to creating even a hedgehog sized hole. This wall, by its very definition, has to be impenetrable. There are no holes in between, like the Great Wall of China or something like
no,
that.
but I think somewhere once they spoke about how they kept those seesaws on this and that side of the border, so kids from the US and kids from Mexico, even they can't see each other, but they could like
I mean,
seesaw
that's
with each other.
definitely not the intent of this wall.
Definitely. The problem here obviously is I don't think it's a Mexican initiative, and we know what the US is doing right now. I mean, the US really wants to make the entire world one big USA. It seems that way.
Hmm.
But the problem is, and the president who is in place at this moment, he doesn't care about wildlife, he doesn't care about environment, he doesn't believe in global warming or climate change. So even if something like this comes in his notice, he's not going to do anything about it. For him, it's more important that the US border stays intact, and that the people get the sense of the US being really great, instead of like, okay, let's just have normal borders, let at least wildlife pass through, or let wildlife have their own space.
Yeah, this is sort of the map that was presented in the article. So what they did was they tagged a lot of animals. So these are sort of the tranquilized animals that have been tagged, that are being tagged or have been tagged. GPS collars and things like that. So that is very important to then present or gather the data of what the animals are doing and how the animals are traveling. And I think from that data, they could, make this map. So I think this is the small area which is present in the map. This is basically the um, Arizona and New Mexico and Mexico border. So this is the map area, and out of which, this part is walled. This part is there's a vehicle barrier, and the Pedro, the bear, um, you know, is crossing exactly through the border, from um, Mexico towards New Mexico, and these are sort of the purple dots are sort of the um, points where all the black bears generally prefer to live in. Um,
But
There,
there's one place I think, oops, in that entire article where they've shown that there's this tiny little places where a raccoon can pass through, and there are only 50 such openings. This is on the Arizona side.
yeah, that is great. That is great. There are tiny little, yeah. There, I can see those openings, and that's a great thing. Like raccoons can pass through, um, and
Rats and skunks and
rats and
bobcats.
yeah, these images are beautiful, but yeah, um, this
Tr-
even hogs to certain extent, maybe, I don't know. Or they tried, they couldn't, you know. Foxes, I mean, that's great though. I mean, some animals can pass through. Smaller animals, pumas definitely wouldn't be able to. Coyotes maybe. um
Jaguars. No, jaguars are too big.
Maybe not. Pumas
Yeah.
maybe not. um
Mountain lions, maybe not.
yeah. So that's again another caveat there, obviously. And there
Yeah,
are
and
openings in there as well, but that doesn't mean, like, I think this would be the, I feel like this would be the argument for not doing anything about this, is that there are unwalled segments, and the bigger animals like jaguar, pumas slash mountain lions, and bears are anyway used to traveling long distances. So when they approach an unwalled segment, why don't they just travel and go to a sorry, if they approach a walled segment, why don't they just go through an unwalled segment and just cross there? Um, I don't know if there is any stock in that argument. What do you think, Meghna?
yeah, I don't know. I feel like one, obviously, for me the most ironical part is that US has a place called New Mexico,
Mm,
and but they want to border with something called Mexico, just Mexico. And the border is also where the New Mexico, where New Mexico and Arizona are meeting Mexico. The thing is, they have spoken about the doggy doors, which are literally like how you have doors in your own house for dogs or cats. And maybe bigger size animals might try to get through that if they're really desperate to get through. We do not know how difficult it would be for them, but for the smaller animals, that works, and there are some. But here they're saying that for something as big as Pedro the bear, the floodgates have to be open. But the floodgates are only open sporadically. That is the problem, because these floodgates are bigger, wider than
mm,
the doggy doors, and you need something as big for bears and mountain lions and pumas and coyotes and maybe not coyotes and jaguars. So unless you are opening those floodgates when those animals appear at the border, you're restricting their entire route of migration and where they're supposed to be heading for like thousands of years. We actually do not have it mapped yet, right? Looks like we don't even know what um, path these animals actually take.
yeah, we have only mapped a few bears that use those migration routes, um, but not everything, not everything. And but it's also very good to hear that the, again, this is expected, but there is a band of conservationists that are trying to help these migration routes stay intact, or help the animals in some way, um, to keep the migration routes intact. Maybe there is a provision for some kind of doors or something, which are obviously always guarded, and whenever animal approaches, those gates can be opened, and the animals could be could pass through easily.
Yeah, I think in
So
such kind of cases, if there was like an AI and someone manning these gates or something like that, like someone who could just check. on what the AI was doing, but if the AI could recognize between a human and an animal. Now, obviously, because AI is not that developed, if someone came in an animal suit just to cross the border, then we don't know. We really don't know because
Yeah.
humans are capable of all of those things. But this is
That's
one
both a
place.
positive and a negative of in these situations. So I no, AI definitely can be a very
Uh,
big help
in this, yeah, in this situation.
in this situation, because
Yeah.
AI is very good at recognizing humans' faces and human body language and whatnot. So AI can definitely not definitely prevent humans appearing as humans to not cross the border, to not open the gates in that way. Um, and then I think there is a further level of analysis where an animal's gait, an animal's exact way of stride and gait, and all those different things, weight, and all those different things. AI can analyze, stride length, and all those different things. I think it would be a very difficult job for a human to mimic all those different variables and factors. And if AI is at that stage, then probably this could be a very good application of an AI.
Yep. And actually, like how Oops mentioned earlier, I think, uh, did you already share all these photos of those conservationists who are opening up their land and rewilding the borders? Because
Mm,
that is really heartwarming to know that there are people out there who are going to open up their own space because the government doesn't want to open up the space for wildlife. So they're rewilding their own space so that these wildlife have some kind of place to go to.
yeah, that is a very great initiative on the landowners part. Also you know the Indians there, the American Indians there, have also signed an agreement with the US officials to sort of co-manage the Arizona's national a national park in Arizona and sort of the wilderness area there. And the tribes people are living on both sides, so animals again would be able to pass through the tribal lands and so on and so forth. So I think that's also a great way. But I think in the government owned regions, there's a very slim chance. I see a very slim chance of even, you know, creating a manned door for wildlife or a manned pass for wildlife. I don't think it is even a possibility um, in the government owned areas.
Yeah. And I think, like, with the bear or with Pedro that we saw. So Pedro
Mm,
took a long time. He tried to cross the wall.
mm,
He tried to cross the highway and he was hesitant. There was a walled structure. So then Pedro migrated and kept walking and found an unwalled structure and passed. And what the conservationists are saying are there are like a lot of species with populations in both places. So in the US and
mm,
Mexico. And they've
mm.
always been very mingling. So there's a bulk of population in one place and maybe lesser population in another place, but they've always been very to and fro mingling. So what this also means is if the walls come down and shut it, there is going to be you know there's going to be a lack of genetic diversity that used to
Mm.
probably happen before, and we've spoken about this earlier as well. A lack of genetic diversity leads to higher risk of diseases and other problems because there's only so much genes that can be passed down and there are no fresh genes mixing, which is natural. Like naturally there's always like fresh genes mixing into the crowd.
Yeah, and I think generally, like, if this was allowed to continue again, this is very hypothetical and particularly not possible. But if this was allowed to continue for a long, long time, and eventually the populations that are separated by this wall would create two different, species. Generally, land barriers and things like that. Um, would create two different species if the habitats are different enough, which it is kind of not. But if there is a lack of genetic diversity, then nature might find a way uh, to solve that. If this continued for long enough, again, that is not an ideal scenario in any way. But just the curious person in me wanted to explore that idea hypothetically. Also, the other thing is we are not absolutely not sure what's going on underground, because these walls, you know, extend underground as well, and there is a lot of underground dwelling species, especially rats and moles and bigger rats as well, that I imagine would live in this area. So I don't know if they can dig down, long enough to cross that underground barrier, or if they are being affected too. No clue at all.
Yeah, there's no way to know. And the sad part is that the wall is going to keep extending. So, like right now, it's not across all states and across all areas between US and Mexico. So there's still some places where wildlife can travel through, and there are obviously those doggy gates for the smaller animals. But the bigger floodgates, especially used probably when monsoons or when the rivers are overflowing, we do not know how viable that is for animals, and we do not know if the entire wall gets constructed, what that means for a lot of species.
And that's the project of the government, right? They want the entire wall to be constructed and finished, and that kind of thing. So yeah, it is a huge compromise that wildlife there will have to be made, but I don't see, apart from these private lands and fragmented areas, it will be very difficult for anyone to convince the government that this is a bad idea. You know, on
Yeah,
either
but
sides, I don't think. I don't know. Once the wall gets built, or once the wall is built, which it already is in a large stretch, it's very hard to put the genie back in the bottle. Once it's out there. Um, yeah,
yeah, I think that is the problem. Once it's made, it's made, and I think with most human things, once it's made, it's harder to strip it down than actually never make it at all. So in this case, if the wall becomes absolute, it's going to probably stay that way unless someone really really wants to strip it down. So we don't know how long that would take, like
yeah,
even building the entire wall and then stripping it down. We don't know how. We do know that the building the wall will probably happen quicker because we know how it's going on and how things are shaping up there. But the stripping down, we're not sure what's going to happen.
yeah. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. Um, all the walls historically as well. Look at the Berlin Wall. Um, you know, it has taken a long, long time to strip down, and real gumption from people on both sides of the wall. Um, the Great Wall of, like, humans have always built walls. The Great Wall of China is a prime example. It's like we have always wanted to segregate these areas up. The concept of borders has existed for such a long time. There is evidence of in archaeology of like primitive sort of barricades and fences and borders and things like that. It is both to keep the wildness out, but also I think after a certain point to keep yourselves in and separated from your neighbors and other, encroachers that you thought would want to take away your property. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
sometimes I think these walls are also ways for the army and troops to get from, let's say, the city, from the palace or somewhere to some other place. So they create these walls as passages, and these walls usually have these protection. So if someone's trying to invade you, then you have like just holes or very strategically placed ways that you can fire the enemy, but the enemy can't fire you back because you're protected by the wall. um
Mm.
so when
Fortification. Yeah.
Yeah, so fortification, when it used to happen back, let's say in the 1600s or even earlier, it used to be mainly for wars, and these walls also used to be there for movement. But now the walls are not for not so much for protecting yourself, but it could be. I mean, if US really perceives Mexican people as a threat, but
I
it's more
mean, they
as
do.
a yeah, it's more as a divide. Like it's a divide now. It's not. It could be protection, but the protection part seems to be like a smaller
I think
segment of
protection,
it.
but also I think one of the key reasons that US tries to or wants to or likes to cite is basically the movement of narcotics um, between the borders. So that's one of the, because manning that entire border is physically not possible, humanly not possible. And also, I think nobody has the time and energy now, or the creativity to create such walls as Great Wall of China, or even a fortificated wall. They don't have the time. They don't have the money. We don't have the money, and we don't have the you know knack for it as well. So yeah, walls are very, very bad, but this is again one of the world's most powerful countries, who is dead set on building these walls. So, as Meghna said in the very beginning, it is a border that exists only for us, and it is very difficult to make a counter argument, especially to the current government. Um,
Yeah, but we do applaud all the conservationists and all the stories that
yeah.
have been posted here who have opened up their own ranches and their own farms, have signed agreements to save certain parks because it's sacred for them. So that is amazing that people are stepping up. They care about the environment, and it's usually the indigenous people and people who are closer to these borders that get affected
Mm,
because they see the changes. So
yeah.
it's amazing that at least they have stepped up. And here's to hoping that there are some unwalled places where these animals can still pass through, and they're just not those doggy doors meant for smaller species. The bigger species need to pass through as well.
Right. Right. Cool. Should we move on then?
Yeah, I think we should, because this is a sad topic and we can keep talking, but we need to cover all the other mostly sad topics, some happy topics. But we'll switch to a happier topic. Um, So this topic is also on conflict, but it is a happier topic, which says that in voluntary parks, human conflict is creating unintended refuges for wildlife. Involuntary parks or areas uninhabitable due to contamination, conflict, or disaster are surprisingly becoming wildlife havens. These weren't intentionally created for conservation, but the absence of humans allows flora and fauna to flourish. Examples include the Hanford Reach National Monument in Washington, surrounding a Cold War nuclear site, now teeming with hundreds of species. Many originate as former military complexes, disaster zones, or borderlands riddled with landmines, like those in Bosnia, Ukraine, Afghanistan, and Cambodia. Despite destructive origins, some are formally designated as protected areas, managed by governments and supported by researchers. This ironic phenomena highlights nature's resilience in the face of human impact. I think this is kind of just the exact opposite, or kind of complementary to the last topic, because again, this is something where we created some structure, then we abandoned that structure, and now wildlife is everywhere because we don't exist there anymore.
That is the key point, I think. Also, um, I think we talked about this, the Korean border, where landmines were there, and lot of different species were existing there. This is more of a general topic. I know definitely in Afghanistan there is a landmine strewn area where wolves, because they can sense and smell, their sense of smell is so keen. They can sense the landmines. They can just evade landmines. And also species that are too light for the landmines to activate it, those will be very active there as well. Birds, small rats and moles, and those kinds of species. So I think this is great. And we have seen in a lot of documentaries as well, where nuclear sites, as is mentioned in the article, become wildlife havens. Even the Chernobyl site is a wildlife haven almost. A lot of foxes and red foxes, especially, breed there. They, you know, uh, yeah, it's it's involuntary, as the article says. It's not the best solution. It's not the solution no one anybody wants, but it's unfortunately the solution that these wildlife animals get.
Yeah, I think the thing with this especially is that it is bittersweet. Bittersweet in the sense that it has a sweet ending, but I think the entire starting was bitter. So
Mm,
there were all these bases for the army to move, or nuclear site, or anything else that was actually meant for, let's say, human protection or destruction. And now it is a place where the wildlife know that we won't be there. And I think I've spoken about this before, but there are videos on YouTube that say that what if humans disappeared right now? And then they show how, like there are people walking everywhere, and all of a sudden, like, all humans disappear. And obviously all these nuclear sites that have been manned by people, were manned by people or controlled by people, they go berserk, and then all the nuclear sites kind of blast. But after that, when it settles down and the entire the nuclear energy is drained out, then all the animals start like really growing, and then there's like vines on all the buildings, and it's wild and beautiful, but like animals are everywhere, and then there don't exist like any borders or anything. But you know that nature is reclaiming all the land because we don't exist there. So those videos are just as impactful, and it shows the same thing that it says in this article. Like, if we are not there, the animals actually prefer that we're not there.
mm, mm. I think it has been a conflict, age-old conflict, ever since the dawn of humanity, with animals. The hunter versus the hunted. Humans were, for a long time, they hunted, and most of our history, we were the hunted. And we have tried very hard to go to the other extreme where nobody can touch us. Um, and that has created a big problem for the flora and the fauna. And we look at the fauna because it's walks, it makes sounds and um, is very visible. But the flora as well, like all the different uh, plants that go extinct, we rarely talk about that because they're not moving living things. They're stationary living things. Um, these kinds of human encroachment also affects them, the flora and the fauna. Now, I was thinking, while you were reading the article, I was thinking, I particularly don't know how to feel about this. Like, I feel good, but yeah, it's a little conflicted. That feeling good feeling is conflicted because those lands should not have been encroached in the first place.
Yeah, but back then we do not know what the situation was. And I mean, how much ever we would not want such kind of situations where there are these Cold War nuclear sites, or there are these um, other military sites. It's a very natural thing, especially for countries that share borders. um, it's very weird. Like, countries that are like New Zealand that don't share a border, they don't have to put that much money into their defense. But countries that share a border, they somehow always end up fighting with their neighbors, which I don't understand how. Like, I mean, it's just government versus government. It's not even the people. And you have a border, you have everything in place, and we're still fighting. Like we're always fighting.
Yeah.
So
Borders, I think, sort of incite that in us humans because that has been the age old history, like fighting over borders. That has been the number one fighting over land and land area. All the empires, their primary goal was how to increase the land area. And yeah, I mean, look at the Mongol Empire or something like that. Um, their only goal was to conquer and increase their land area, in turn increasing their borders. Yeah, it
Yeah,
has been a
yeah,
age of, and I think borders also inside that. Even if you have a neighbor with a border, there, you hear of all these stories about neighbors fighting about whose land the lemon trees on, or who should be able to take the fruits of a special kind of tree or whatever. I mean, that's like neighbor, like, I don't know, borders. I think that's what incites some kind of violent tendencies in us.
yeah.
Funny.
I think it's just a human thing to want to capture more and more land. Something about probably feeling a big sense of power. I'm sharing the article here. This is the Mongabe article, and
Mm,
this is what like Oops was talking about. So one of the landmine signs in this is in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and because of the landmines, obviously, humans go to these areas, but these areas now dealing with wildlife. Um, so even in Ukraine and Afghanistan is the same thing.
mm,
Large areas are landmine areas, and it's amazing how most of the animals know and avoid, or the lighter animals already do not need to avoid, but the larger animals also know how to avoid. Like the animals are teeming there because they're not being affected by the landmines. If they were, they would have scattered away by now, because if they would have blasted a few landmines, then they would be scared of even staying there.
mm,
And then this is one of the areas, a tiny portion of this 1916 battlefield. But when you see it now in 2025, it's green. Obviously the landscape is jagged because of the soil disturbance that was caused by the explosives. But you look at this area now, of the battlefield is actually a green, thriving area. Similarly, this is the an unobstructed stretch of the Columbia River. Now it supports a large uh, salmon run. So it has these fish now thriving and migrating. But earlier, this was what was happening at the same river. So this was in 1960, and Hanford's nuclear reactors lined the river. They produced plutonium for nuclear weapons, generated electricity, and contaminated the surrounding environment. So this was 1960, when the entire area was being contaminated because of plutonium. Um, so yeah, and this is one of the maps of this Hanford Reach National Monument, which now is an area where there's all the wildlife that exists. So there's a whole area that has been marked.
mm. Yeah. This is again great outcome, but the path to get there wasn't great. Like, we are obviously not saying that incite wars or create these nuclear sites just because wildlife can find a refuge. We have to do better, right? We can't just wage wars just for, oh, but this has a you know good outcome. This war will have a good outcome where the wildlife would be able to use this area or space or whatever. But that's not how we want things, and definitely not how it should go. So nobody wants wars. It is something that we have tried to move away from. It was the way of life, for a long time. It was the normal thing to do. But yeah.
Yeah, it was and the weird part is also like the same areas that probably people fought for earlier. They're not even relevant anymore. Apparently, a lot of areas just stay barren. Like something like how we say Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and Kashmir says Indian occupied Kashmir. Um,
Mm,
so us versus Pakistan, that entire area is just this large area that cannot be overtaken by either country, and it has these big borders and security and patrols. But those kind of huge areas now just stay unreclaimed, but these are areas that the animals team in, like the animals thrive in, because there are no
Mm,
humans, because the humans are fighting over that one piece of land, and both parties are fighting that much.
yeah. I don't think. I mean, some animals do have the concept of borders, their nests and things like that, but not at the scale of us. I don't think. I don't think that any animal has that scale that we do. But I think it's also not natural to have a concept of border and personal space and things like that, and guarding that. So I
Yeah,
think that's where our tendencies also come from.
like I feel like this is really nice in the sense that um we didn't want to, but we've done something good for the animals, so we didn't intend to. And
Mm,
it's actually really weird for me to also imagine that we have these landmines and we never had a backup plan of removing those landmines. Like, we never thought about um what would we do if these didn't go off, or in the off chance that we don't need a space where these landmines exist. That actually is mind boggling to me, that we put them in, but we never thought about taking them out.
yeah.
Or we never thought about how do we do the entire thing. But because of that, these animals can exist like huge areas with so many landmines. We kind of, I think, bring these problems onto ourselves, don't we? Oops, like we make these landmines, then we make these borders, and then we're like, oh, like, how do we solve this? So yeah, that's quite
Mm,
that's quite funny that we bring up
it is.
every
I mean,
problem. And
humans are not very good at thinking, long term.
yeah,
So, and it has been that in the case, we are very good short term thinkers because we develop from hunter gatherers. It is the short term wit and short term, brain power that comes into play when you're hunting and gathering, where everything is out there to attack you. I also think, we made a kind of a joint statement in the first topic, or the first news piece that we covered, that animals don't have borders, which is wrong. Animals do have borders, not the same ones as ours, but animals do have borders, like territories.
like what?
Territories, like tiger marking their territory.
Oh yeah, yeah, I did say that. I did say that. I
Right?
actually
Did you?
mentioned that. Yeah, 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 yeah. I said that, they're territorial. Obviously, they have their own spaces, but they do not have like a line drawn in the sand. That's what I said. Like, they don't have
I mean,
a
they
place.
do.
Like, not that way.
They will
Like, I
mark their territories and defend their territories if someone comes in.
exactly, but they don't have something that doesn't let someone move through. So that's
Ah,
what I meant. Like, they don't have structures where you cannot move through. They do have like their areas marked, but like for us, we don't just mark and leave it. Like, we have to have
yeah.
structures to establish that. So the last article actually was a little bleak because we do not know the future of the animals that are trying to
Mm,
migrate between US and Mexico. But in this case, this is actually quite nice that there are areas. These areas also do have borders. Obviously, all these war-stricken or other radioactive stricken areas, they do have borders, or they have an area where these wildlife are teeming. But at least there are some areas that these wildlife can go undisturbed.
yeah, yeah. That's a great outcome for these kinds of wildlife, um, and the wildlife that are thriving there. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of that, we'll also talk about another sort of human-animal conflict that is happening in Mongolia, and sort of the cultural background of it as well. This is another article from National Geographic. How sacred wolf hunts shape life for nomadic Mongolian herders. Kazakh herders in Mongolia's Altai Mountains face a growing conflict with wolves, traditionally revered in their culture. For centuries, a balance existed, rooted in animistic beliefs linking their ancestry to wolves. This can be seen in a lot of different cultures. Even India, a lot of cultures have this. Your ancestors are these animals, or they're seen as deities or of some kind, seen as intelligent, courageous, and possessing heightened senses. However, increasing wolf attacks on livestock and like a recent horse kill are shifting the relationship towards survival. These herders, comprising 98%, oh wow, of Bayan Olgi, Bayan Olgi province's population, rely on livestock for sustenance. While historically respecting wolves, the need to protect their livelihood, driving more frequent hunts. The discovery of a wolf den near a kill signifies the escalating tension between tradition and necessity in this remote region. And Mongolia is really, really remote, especially the places that are being talked about here, where all the nomadic farmers are living. Um, yeah, this is another example of that human animal conflict. And I think similar conflict exists in the Tibetan region of India as well, where snow leopards and wolves, also Tibetan wolves, you know, interact with the livestock and kill a lot of livestock. Um, and especially in the summer months when the snow leopards sort of come down towards more of the human habitat levels.
Yeah, and I
These are
think that
the hunters, by the way. Beautiful photograph.
yeah, and I think these people basically are in the really, really, really remote region. Like Mongolia is already remote, as Oops had mentioned, but this is even more remote. Like, so the area that they're talking about specifically in this article,
Mm,
it's supposed to be this what would you call it? Uh, the country's highest and westernmost province, nestled
mm,
along the border of China and Russia. So they are remote. They have lesser resources. So as the article says, that their sustenance is basically on all the animals that they rear. It is only on these animals, so their sustenance depends on this livestock. So for them now, if the wolves are hunting down their livestock, it's getting tougher. But at the same time, the wolves are coming down and hunting the livestock because of climate change. Their own prey species are being affected. So the wolves are not in the wrong either, and the people are not in the wrong either. But this is a very tricky situation. Uh, because the wolves are also needed, and people need their livestock as well for sustenance.
yeah. I think some people, I was just scrolling through the article, some people are trying to find some cool and innovative solutions as well. Like you have a scarecrow in your fields. They have come up with this, like a scarecrow looking thing on a horse's back when the horse is grazing, etc. So the wolves would think these are hunters trying to hunt them, and they would stay away. But we have also explored in a recent article that how intelligent wolves are, or how intelligent wolves can be. So they might figure this out, they might not figure it out, but this seems to be a viable solution, at least for the short term, in my view. Obviously the article has beautiful photos of this is a photo of them skinning a wolf after killing them, but also just seeing the natural lives that they lead, the nomadic semi nomadic lives that they lead, but also, like as Meghna said, like these are the habitat for the wolves as well. Beautiful photograph of like an aurora with a wolf pup in the foreground. So this is their habitat as much, and you can see in the distance maybe a very small shadow of of a horse. You probably can't, but there is a very small shadow of a horse and a couple of huts in the very distance. So it is it is a matter of effectively sharing that habitat, which is very difficult, which is very difficult for both parties.
True. And I think in this case, there is some kind of reverence as well because their ancestry and the way they believe about the animals. So, this is very similar to how I think we've spoken about Hindu deities and a lot of animals represented in the Hindu deities. So, it's similar in this area where the wolves are ancestrally very important to them. So, when they go to
Mm,
hunt these wolves down, or even when they take the pups, like there's, I think, a place in the article which says that they take these pups, then they kind of tame them and they grow till adulthood, and then that is when they're culled down. But there is a restriction on the number of pups that they can pick up, and there's a restriction on the number of wolves that they can hunt down. So
mm,
they're very careful about it. Like it only happens once in a few years, and it only happens when the wolves start hunting down something, a lot of livestock, I think. So they have their tolerance as well. So this is one of those places where the human wildlife coexistence gets tricky, because these wolves, they used to uh, thrive or eat wild sheep and red deer, which are getting scarcer and scarcer because of the change in climate in that region. So they're being forced to head to these livestock. So I really don't know how or how intense this is going to keep getting because of the changing weather.
mm. And like we as you said, like we're not in a position, or we cannot blame the humans there as well, because they depend on their livestock. And in contrast, even the people who are not as dependent on the livestock as they are, because these guys without the livestock they would just die off. It's not money, but it's food and sustenance and that kind of thing. But even on the other end of the spectrum, ranchers in the, you know, North America and South American continents, the American continent, um, they would kill wolves and coyotes as well, just because they get into their farms and kill maybe one or two livestock, where they will have thousands and thousands of acres and thousands of livestock. It's just about the numbers for these guys. So they will also kill, even though their livelihood, I don't think, is dependent on that one cow or one bull or whatever. So yeah, these guys, it's very intense, and we can never understand that kind of pressure, where one kill means they might go hungry for a certain period of time, and their children might not survive, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think the problem also here is that there is a pattern or a change in the profession as well. Here they're saying
Mm,
that livestock herd sizes across Western Mongolia have gone up, while the number of herders has gone down. So there's lesser
mm,
protection for the animals because there's one herder for a bigger herd than many herders for a smaller herd. So that also makes it tougher for these herders. And uh, I think the problem also is that I do not know the kind of subsidy that these people are getting. So if there's enough subsidy being provided for every animal that a wolf takes, then they might not be willing or wanting to hunt down these wolves. But because the cost is quite big, then they're not willing to take that cost onto themselves, which is fair
which is fair.
which is for the herders. But at the same time, these wolves are just trying to survive. It's not like they're trying to, attack on someone else's sustenance or trying to attack on this herders.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
it's not
that,
intentional for the wolves as well.
yeah.
um
And I
yeah,
think with the wolves, what they're also saying is that the wolves don't have any natural predator in the environment. The wolves are the apex predators in these landscapes.
right.
So these wolves don't have anything controlling their numbers, but the wolves' numbers are probably automatically being controlled because of the scarcity of wild animals that they can feed on.
But aren't wolves always the highest, like, or apex predators in the landscapes that they thrive in?
I think it depends. So there are areas, I think, in British Columbia where you have wolves, but you also have bears and you have other kind of animals. So if they come into um, contact, they might have a tussle, but I do not know how much they come into contact. But yeah,
Mm,
wolves would be up there, and then they all always hunt in packs as well, which makes them very, very, very efficient in their hunts,
mm,
as opposed to like a bear or a lion that hunts alone. So yeah,
mm,
but there's one, I think, very moving picture uh, in this. Let me see if I have the article up. No, I have the old article up. One second. Mhm. But there's a photo of the this person, and what he's doing is, as it's mentioned in the um, article, that these people really take their ancestry and um, importance of work. So this is a person that's praying before he takes the life of that wolf that he captured as a pup and raised. So killing the creature is a sacred act, and so he's asking for forgiveness and he's praying before he takes that. That's a very, very, very impactful picture taken in that
mm.
angle. That is just beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It is very beautiful. Um, yeah, these kinds of beliefs again is not present in the well-oiled machines that are commercial farming. Um, that's why I think these kinds of farms and these kinds of livestock herding is vanishing as well slowly, because it's a lot of effort for a small reward, and you have to constantly battle the natural forces as well. That's why maybe a lot of the younger or the later generations are choosing more of the urban lifestyle and urban kind of work rather than this this kind of work. In my mind, this is I romanticize this kind of nomadic life a lot, but I do know it is something that maybe I wouldn't be able to survive in more than a few days, because it requires a lot of ruggedness and a lot of work and a lot of gumption to survive in this harsh landscapes.
Yeah. And I think that is the thing. Like you need to have a lot of, it is also something where you've been brought up, so you need a lot of metal. There's a different way that the knowledge is passed down. It's great that these animals are still revered. Because they're revered, they're not like, cults, like how in the US you just have like hunts as soon as some
Mm,
animals grown. So you're like, okay, let's take all these animals down, give so many licenses, shoot down so many animals. It's not that way for these communities. For these communities, the wolves also matter. It's just that their own sustenance also matters to them. So it's one of those things where they have to balance both the things. So they have to see how many wolves is okay, so that their sustenance is not put at stake. So this is somewhere where they still respect the animal, they still want to coexist with the animal, and they don't want to wipe out the
mm.
animal. That itself is just great to know that there's that willingness for coexistence.
I think intention matters a lot, and the intention here is not to kill, as you said. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's to hoping that there is a solution that is that can be both from a government level, where there are some incentives provided to these farmers. I think that is the best kind of solution there. But also, maybe a little bit of wildlife management as well, which can come into play. Um,
Yeah.
More scientific, looking at it from a more scientific lens. Yeah.
Yeah, if there was a possibility of maybe reintroducing their prey species, because
Mm,
of whatever problems are being caused for their scarcity. So that these are the two solutions. If the government can do it, we do not know the extent of what Mongolia might be able to do for its extreme, extreme remote provenances. But yeah, let's just wait and watch.
yeah, we'll obviously give you an update if there is anything else to report on this topic. Should we move on, Meghna, then?
Yeah. Okay. So I think should we do another topic, or should we do
We
one
can
of
do like
the
a we can do a
like a
couple of yeah, species or whatever,
yeah.
updates and things like that.
Okay. So there's I think one that we I really wanted to cover. So Greenland sharks retain functional vision despite extreme longevity. Greenland sharks, the longest living vertebrates with lifespans exceeding 400 years, were long thought to be nearly blind due to their dark deep sea habitat and frequent eye parasites. New research challenges this, revealing they can see and maintain vision for over a century. A team led by Lily Fogg at the University of Basel analyzed shark genomes and eye tissue, discovering intact and functioning vision genes and well preserved eye structure. Interestingly, Greenland sharks possess only rod cells optimized for low light conditions, lacking the cone cells humans use for bright light vision. This adaptation suits their dimly lit Arctic and Atlantic environment, suggesting their vision is well suited for their lifestyle, despite the darkness. The study utilized specimens from ongoing longevity research, preventing waste. So this is quite amazing because I think people just assumed, and I think a lot of these photos with Greenland sharks, they always have these parasites just right next to the eyes. So most people just assume that Greenland sharks can't see or they're almost blind.
Mm. When I found out about Greenland sharks for the first time, um, yeah, it was very surprising to me. Um, Thinking that you know a species could a non-plant species could live for so long. Um,
Yeah, and
400
this is
years
a
is a
photo.
long time.
Yeah, I mean, how many things even change in a span of 50 years these days?
Yeah.
So this is a Greenland shark. That's their eye. There's also, I think, one of the parasites that you can see. And also seeing Greenland sharks itself, I think it's supposed to be like a really lucky encounter. You don't really see them. They
Mm.
stay in the dark depth. They come up very rarely. So these encounters are also uh, very very rare and very very special. It's great that the research is not using any new they don't have to like go and hunt down or tag new Greenland sharks to just do their research. So that is great that they're using it from other research, like the parts that they've um,
Collected.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
collected. Yep.
Yeah, Greenland sharks are awesome creatures. Definitely very very one of the more docile sharks as well. And yeah, it's just amazing how long they can live for. Now, I mean, the sharks alive now would probably have been there during the Renaissance, and things like that, when human Renaissance was happening. So yeah,
Yeah,
very
they
very interesting.
yeah, they probably don't even know what they're surviving through. But also 400 years seems so long, oops, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
I
for
would
a
not
human.
want. No, I mean, even for a shark, I feel like if I was a shark, I would not want to live that long. Like, what am I supposed to do living that long? Or, I I mean, your schedule would pretty much be the same, but even as a human, I'm like, 50, 55
I
is
mean,
more than enough.
humans, it's just very difficult to, as you said, like very difficult to imagine beyond a certain age. Most people, that is like 75, 80, or whatever. 100 if you're lucky. Um, but
Yeah, but
yeah, it's
imagine having to live for 400 years. I don't think I could do that. Like, I
no.
just would like, I would just, as a shark, if there was a way, I would say, please, just let me go. I'm done. Like, I don't want to live anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
But
humans have that tendency to, like, as you grow closer to what is generally considered a dying age, you have humans who, like, are suffering in some way. They will pray for their life to be taken. There are even cases where family members, everyone involved, hope that their lives are taken just because it is so painful, um, for for the survival. So I think we do that, but I don't know how the sharks are thinking, and we'll probably never know. Um,
Also, I
but
think they probably live a relatively healthier life, like the wild animals in general, the kind of things that they consume and the kind of environments they're in. Uh, they usually, unless they're impacted by something that has been caused by us, they live a healthier life and they live their entire lifespan. And they just go about living their lives. Like, I read something recently saying that humans are the only animals that want purpose in their life. Like, we look for
yeah,
purpose. Like, we're
it's
alive. Why are
all
we alive? Yeah, like,
yeah.
why have I been brought onto this earth? Like, what is my purpose in life? But the animals are just existing. They're
Are
just
there
like,
any other species across in the universe and things like that?
yes.
Yeah, no, it is.
We just
It is.
I and animals are just happy. They wake up by their clockwork and they're like, okay, I will go eat, I will reproduce, I will sleep, and that's all. They're not looking for a purpose of, oh, if I do my degree from this college, then I will get a really good income and I will have 5 kids. Nothing. Like, they're just living their life. So that way, yeah, the Greenland sharks are just living their life. They just how Dory says, I think, just swimming, swimming, swimming. So
Mm,
they're just living their life. So that is a beautiful article, and that
mm,
was quite nice to know that their vision is much better than we expected it to be. It's similar to, I think, bats. How it's like, they, for a longer time, I think people used to assume that bats are just blind because they're so um dependent on
yeah.
echolocation, but they do
Mm,
have eyes. They just don't use them as much as they use their echolocation.
mm. Right. Speaking of that, let's go into another of these sort of news updates slash species updates. This comes from The Guardian, titled "Very Nice to Meet You." Bumper fruit crop could lead to huge mating season for New Zealand's endangered kakapo. New Zealand's critically endangered kākāpō parrots, it's a kind of parrot, flightless, are poised for a significant breeding season thanks to a rare megamast and abundant fruiting of the rimu tree. These nocturnal flightless birds, weighing up to 4 kg and living 60 to 80 years, breed only every 2 to 4 years. When rimu trees produce plentiful berries, providing vital nutrition for chicks. After 4 year wait, conservationists are optimistic that bumper crop will lead to a record number of offspring. The kakapo population, once near extinction, has been rebuilt from 51 to 236 birds since 1995, including 83 breeding age females. This event is crucial for the species' continued recovery. Um, to share a quick photo of the kakapo, um,
And
this
I think,
is.
if people don't remember, this is the same bird that we showed. Um, that When Stephen Fry was doing this show in New Zealand, the Kakapo shagged their cameraman, and that
Mm,
was taken on, not the cameraman, I think the photographer,
mm,
and that was on camera, and that was really funny. And the Kakapo actually thought of that cameraman as a potential partner.
mm. Yeah. Um, very cool bird, very cool parrot. Um, flightless, of course. And yeah, it's a great news that they have. I think most animals that live a long time, because these Greenland sharks that you were talking about as well, they do not need reach reproductive maturity till, like, I think they're 80 years old or 100 years old or whatever. Something some very very big number, which I was again surprised by when I first read about it. These birds are very casual as well. Every 2 to 4 years, they have a few chicks. That's it for them. Yeah,
But I
living
think
life
that
on the slow lane.
that is always the case with longevity. So if you live longer, then your reproduction or your reproduction maturity age is also longer. Your gestation periods are usually longer. So
Mm.
this is how it probably always works with nature. So if you have a rabbit or a mice, it's just a couple of days or a couple of weeks, and you have a huge number of babies. So everything depends on um, how old you live, how long
Because
your gestation period
if
is.
you reproduce easily and live long, then the whole earth will be, overpopulated by your species. But humans have cracked the code there. We
Yes.
want to live long and produce more. So that's why we are at 8 billion strong. No other species, except I guess insects, is
Yeah,
this at large.
and it still surprises me that even though we're 8 billion going strong, still increasing, there are always these articles everywhere saying that, oh my god, the replacement birth rate has fallen. We need to have more
I
kids.
mean,
You
it
know,
is a
the
concern, but it is a concern. It is falling because South Korea is at a point of no return. They nothing they can do can ever bring back their birth rates, and they can never continue with their culture. There will be a time where South Korea will just go away from the face of the earth. It is a concern, but we have cracked the code for longevity to an
but I think
extent.
this is the time that they kind of adopt immigrants or adopt people from other places so that they can have more people, and then kind of uh, what would you say, get them embedded into your culture somehow. So you have a
Hmm.
lot of people. It's just again the same thing that probably we'll talk after this about the elephants. So there are people.
Hmm.
It's just in different places that you have more and
Hmm.
less people. So we again have the problem as well. We do not want the more people to go into the less people area, or the less
Hmm.
people to go into the more people area.
That's
we
true.
we
That's true.
we have all these visas and rules and deportations and whatnot.
Cool. Yeah. I'll just quickly share the Rimu tree and Rimu berries. This is the Rimu tree, a native New Zealand tree, and these are the berries that the kākāpō love to feast on. Cool.
Tell me this, oops, do you think someday New Zealand would say that, oh my god, we have too many kakapo, we need to start, like,
Definitely.
reducing
I mean,
their numbers?
if it is very very popular, very successful, and they actually move out of the protected islands to the mainland, and there their breeding and everything is successful as well. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I
definitely.
don't I don't know. I
So many
think I think
capable
for the
there.
island they may say that. I don't know if they would ever say that for the mainland, but like I think I've said this before.
I
New
mean,
Zealand
island there is
birds.
no humans to complain.
Oh, that is true. But I think we've spoken about this earlier. But New Zealand birds, they really need like other people's help to survive and
Hmm.
to reproduce. And kakapos are one of those
At,
birds
at
where
at
the
at in this modern age, in this um at this time,
yeah, I mean everywhere else, a lot of species, it's one of those, what do you say, survival of the fittest. But
because
here it's
imagine
not.
if the Haast eagle existed, then these would have been the when the Haast eagle, a big eagle species that was one of the only predators in New Zealand. When they existed, these species were the most successful because they could hide in the undergrowth. The kiwis and the kakapos and the takahes and all these different species.
True, true. But who is to blame for all the changes? It's us. And now, because we don't want to take the blame on us, we do all of these things. But New Zealand birds, I don't know. I mean, I would always say, like, how you're saying South Korea's population may someday, there might be no one to take their culture forward.
Not
That might
might.
happen.
There definitely would not be someone to take their culture and their people for their genetics forward.
Would you say South Korea is in a worse position than Japan? Like, what is their replacement?
Definitely, South Korea is at the point of no return. Basically,
Okay.
South Korea is at the point. Nothing they can do, nothing anyone can do, can revive or move the needle the other way.
Hmm. Yeah, but I
Hmm.
think with the kākāpō and all also it's the same thing. Like,
Hmm.
when with humans we kind of accept that eventually some population cannot exist or something, there are some things that you can't do about it. We have to
Hmm.
try, but we can't only think that that is the only way that something can exist, because I don't know, I don't understand how much human intervention is okay. Like, I would always be like, however,
That
the
is that is
wildest.
a that is a debate. That is definitely, yeah. That is definitely a conversation that the conservation world is constantly having. Right? How much intervention is too much intervention? Who decides on how much intervention is okay? But I think we have to sort of leave that with the local governments and um, the judgment of the local peoples to
Yeah.
decide on.
So
Um,
we'll anyway keep you updated on how,
cool.
if the Kakapo are successful, they're not being lazy, and the Remos actually help them have a lot of babies. But
Yeah,
yeah, let's move on to the next topic.
correct, correct. Let's go.
Okay, we'll get back to one of the more serious topics. So this is about the elephants that I was just talking about. So it
Mm,
says Africa's Great Elephant Divide. Countries struggling with too many elephants or too few. South Sudan's Badingalo National Park faces a potential extinction of elephants with only one remaining, a stark contrast to the 100,000, or let me just say it in however this is 1,33,500 estimated in the 1970s. This decline highlights the devastating impact of poaching and habitat loss in parts of Africa. Simultaneously, southern Africa's Kavango Zambezi Conservation Area experiences overpopulation, leading to increased human wildlife conflict, including fatalities. Success stories exist, like Chad's Sakoma National Park, which hasn't seen elephant poaching since 2016, fostering a thriving herd. The situation illustrates a critical imbalance. While some regions struggle to protect winning populations, others grapple with managing abundance, demanding nuanced conservation strategies. And our discussion question is: are there any solutions to maintain healthy elephant populations across Africa? This is oh my god! Like, there's just one elephant remaining out of 133,500.
mm.
So that is just, yeah. Um, I don't know, like from 100,000, like almost close to 150,000, you can go down to one just because of poaching and habitat loss, like the kind of things that we humans can do to decrease populations.
Yeah, yeah. And in such a small time, like 40, 50 years. Um, yeah, this
Yeah.
one, I think, this one again, I think, I don't know how this has happened, but this one, I think, also comes down to, having borders and having barriers in the migration routes, I would imagine, right? Because nature generally has a way of spreading the population, pretty consistently across regions, right? Um,
Yeah, and elephants actually have like ancient migratory routes, and they say
hmm,
that elephant migratory routes are like they really follow their head. Like, there's a route, and they always follow that. So if you're going to block like an elephant migration route, they do not know where to go anymore, because that is the only route that they follow. They do not explore
hmm.
other routes, because these are ancient routes that have been passed on somehow genetically from generation to generation.
because because I was thinking that relocating an elephant is not going to be a very good idea because you know how we discussed the relocation of the Javan rhino, and it was so taxing on that rhino that it ended up dying. So I don't think relocating would be cost effective or good for the elephants as well. The only way I see this happening is opening up the migration routes. And Africa, there has been some inspirational stories from Africa as well, where there are a lot of resorts and hotels that would let the elephants pass through their properties, and things like that, just because they are built on a migration route. And I think similar images there in this article as well, where elephants are sort of hovering um, around around a resort of some kind. I'm just sharing the image, the cover image basically. The elephants are hovering over, near a resort, which clearly looks like a resort. So that means this is their natural migration path, but they're being blocked by this particular resort. Um, I think this is very easy. On one hand, we had the conservationists and farmers and ranchers in the borders of US and Mexico where they're opening up their lands. But here for the tourists, these lands are being closed to these mighty elephants. So I think a very small but easy step forward is to open up, create some kind of elephant highways of sorts.
But I think in this photo, especially the cover photo, it's not about being in the path. It's just one photo from Zimbabwe's safari lodge, where the
Right.
elephants come to drink water. So this was actually highlighting how Zimbabwe has too many elephants. But I will also share my screen once to show that one single lonely elephant that remains in the Baringilo National Park in South Sudan.
Mm.
So that is the entire landscape, and you see one lonely elephant. And yeah, this is the reality that South Sudan will probably not have any elephants if they do not relocate or somehow bring elephant babies, or I don't know what kind of um, program they would have, but this is the last surviving elephant there.
Yeah. That's
And
because
this is,
obviously the place with too many elephants is Zimbabwe is complaining about the elephants, right? Too many elephants, human animal conflict, and so on and so forth. Um,
yeah, maybe they can create some kind of migratory routes for these elephants to pass through, so that maybe they might go to other places in Africa. This is a photo from Chad, where the population or the elephant tribe is thriving, the Zakuma National Park. So this is one of Africa's most significant success stories, because since 2016 no elephants have been poached, so there has been a revival of the elephants in this landscape. And we've spoken about this earlier, and I think Oops and I have also grown up seeing, now no more, but when we were younger and you would go to these souvenir shops or you'd go to somewhere, you would actually have like a lot of things made with elephant tusk. Like there would be uh, and the irony was that there's this elephant god in India. They would actually carve the elephant god out of the elephant tusk and sell it,
mm,
which made zero sense. I mean, because this elephant god is something you pray to, and there's another tusk out there which might have been poached from an elephant and tortured by an elephant. But there was a lot of tusks. You remember the ivory? Like there was so much
oh yes,
ivory
yes,
when we were
yes.
growing up.
We owned. I would say a lot of ivory made things. Souvenirs and small trinkets around the house. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that was what these elephants were poached for, or the rhinos are even being poached for even now because of the ivory in their tusks. But it's great to know that there are areas where it is thriving, or the populations are recovering just because of one thing, like that the poaching has been controlled. Like there's been no poaching. So one small single step, such a big impact.
Yeah. But the unfortunate thing is that anti-poaching efforts require a lot of effort, and a lot of manpower. So it's very easy to cut the budget for that if a country comes into. It's like the thing is, the poaching has not been rooted from its core. It's just a band-aid, albeit a long-term band-aid, but it's still there, like still happening, still bubbling under in the underbelly. As soon as there is another, more looming emergency for that government, and government pulls funds from the anti-poaching efforts, the poachers will march right in.
Yeah. Um, there are stories. I think even in 2016, African parks have moved around 500 elephants hundreds of miles between two parks in Malawi.
Right.
Yeah, so that was the biggest in-country elephant transaction or translocation that was ever undertaken.
Mm,
Um, but obviously, there are, you know, how Oops has said, it's really expensive. So right now, I think conservation doesn't get the same kind of budgets as it did maybe in 2016. There's a struggle. So if there's enough money that was at least given in by the government, if South Sudan really wants their elephants back, a translocation is possible. It might not be very cost effective, but it would be a way of getting the elephants back. And this is one thing. Or the other thing is to somehow open up these migratory routes between different countries so that these elephants can move around and they're not just in one country, because elephants
mm,
do migrate. So that's this is one of the ways that can be done. So these are two solutions. Because in I think in certain areas like in Zimbabwe, you have too many elephants, so you would
mm.
want these elephants to start traveling to different places.
Yeah, and it's sort of a win-win situation, I think, for both countries involved as well. One gets more elephants. Obviously, elephants will drive, tourism and that kind of things as well. So, and the other country, Zimbabwe, gets lesser elephants as a result of that moving and translocation, whatever. And both solutions that you suggested, like translocation or opening up migratory routes, or doing the proper research that where exactly are those migratory routes, what's blocking the paths, and just trying to open those paths up, both seem doable and achievable. You know
Yeah,
so
and
hoping the governments and the people involved take those decisions that are needed to achieve the success of such a project.
yep. We'll keep you updated on whatever happens with South Sudan's lost elephant, and if they're going to get some elephants to give that lost elephant some company.
True, true. um Speaking of that, I wanted to talk about this, and I just wanted to mention this, um, where a lot of articles have been popping up in both our feeds, the wildlife feeds, about Australia and how it is being impacted by the climate change, and it is facing a brunt of that climate change effects. In line with that comes a story from the Guardian, which is titled "Flying Foxes Die in Their Thousands in Worst Mass Mortality Event Since Australia's Black Summer." A severe heat wave across southeast Australia has caused a mass mortality event for flying foxes, the worst since 2019-20 Black Summer bushfires. Thousands of vulnerable grey headed flying foxes have died in Australia, Victoria, and New South Wales due to temperatures exceeding 42 degree centigrades or 107 degree Fahrenheit. Volunteers discovered thousands of dead bats at Melbourne's Brimbank Park, alongside hundreds more at other camps. And they're working to rescue orphan pups. Experts estimate between 1,000 to 2,000 deaths in South Australia, thousands in Victoria, and up to 1,000 in New South Wales. The heat overwhelmed bats in exposed areas lacking shade, highlighting the species' vulnerability to extreme weather. Um, and the discussion question that we have for this is, what does the future of specialized species like bats and flying bats are what are being referred to as flying foxes, I think, look with increasingly frequent extreme heat waves, heat
Yeah,
events?
I think this is one of those futures that we're looking at, like one of those climate induced or global warming induced changes that we do not know how we can put a stop to it, or how we can reduce, or how we can reverse it. So these flying foxes probably cannot take these kind of temperatures, and as we know, rising temperatures and specialized species have like they go together hand in hand. So there are certain
Hmm.
species that cannot adapt to changes, and the flying foxes are one of those species. So it's sad to know that there's so many species just dying, like this flying fox. um Thousands of them are dying, and this is the first time that they've noticed this since the bushfire. So the bushfires killed a lot of bats or the flying foxes earlier, but now it's just the, just the rising temperatures, not even like a bushfire.
Yeah. Um, and this is one of the things. And as I said, like a few more articles have come up regarding the exact same thing, or like the new heat waves and the heat blast that has been going on in Australia, and this is very apparent, right? We keep talking about where humans not reacting to something until it's very in your face. This is in our faces. um
But yeah, but it's not affecting us as such. um right, that is why we don't really care that much. I'm sharing the screen for oops, because
yeah,
this is how the flying foxes look. And there's actually a
basically
whole
a species
video
of
on the,
bats.
yes. And if you go down here in the article, this is how there are like just tens of flying foxes dead on the floor. I think this must have been collected by the ones going there and doing the survey. So these are all the dead flying foxes in the park.
Right, right. um Again, this is something that is very apparent for the species, not so much for the people involved yet. But if this trend continues, I can very well imagine this being a very um deadly trend for the humans involved as well. um
Yeah, and I think people don't realize that specialized species actually are an indicator. So something with like sparrows. When I used to grow up in my city, you used to have sparrows everywhere, and now we don't see sparrows at all. Like you see pigeons because they adapt, but sparrows cannot adapt beyond a limit. So when you don't have sparrows in the environment, it's actually an indicator that your environment is not great enough anymore. There is serious problem in the environment.
mm,
So
mhm.
these specialized species are an indicator, and this is what we need to listen to when the specialized species are just disappearing. What does it tell us? So there are obviously some species that would disappear at the smallest change, but there are species that are still there. So these bats, I think this is their threshold, like the 42 degrees Celsius that's hit this year.
Mm, this is the threshold, and yeah, it'll be very difficult for all these different species that are dying for different reasons. Like there are so many different reasons these different species are dying, and it's really sad overall that we still can't um in a way see the impact and realize the impact and take it into heart. And there are still climate change deniers out there.
Yeah, I think that's
And people
where.
who say, why it is cold? Isn't it supposed to be warm in climate change?
Yeah, for people to actually start acting, to band together, to care about the climate is only going to happen when the governments actually come together, when they actually
Hmm.
take this seriously. When people start dying because of something like this, that is when the governments would do something. But right now the governments are really really busy trying to either save their land from another person or save their presidents from another person. So at this point of time, no one is safe, and there's just wars everywhere. The way it's going, they're saying World War III is not far away. We actually do not know, and we hope it doesn't happen. But um, yeah, I mean, with something that catastrophic looming over us, the wildlife just takes a backseat. It always has, but now more than ever.
Now more than ever. Now more than ever. Cool. I think that's what we had to say about that topic. I think
Yeah.
it's free choice now, whatever you want to choose and talk about.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go back to one of the species because this was something that we found really interesting. It
Mm.
says cheetah mummies found in Arabian caves provide rare genome from a lost population. This is from Nat Geo. Scientists in Saudi Arabia discovered seven remarkably preserved cheetah mummies and remains of over 50 others within a remote cave network. Dating back as far as 4,000 years, the finds represent the first naturally mummified big cats discovered on the Arabian Peninsula. The dry, cool cave environment facilitated exceptional preservation with some mummies nearly 2,000 years old. Genetic analysis reveals a close relation to modern Asiatic and Northwest African cheetahs, offering crucial insights into a lost Arabian population that went extinct in the 1970s. Researchers hope this genetic data will aid future conservation efforts and potentially facilitate reintroduction programs in Saudi Arabia, offering a path to restore the species to its former habitat. So this is just nature and nature mummifying these animals in a cave. It's nothing to do with um,
Just a warning before you share the image. The image can be a little bit triggery.
okay. Okay.
Um, yeah,
One.
just
Okay.
um,
Wait.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
I've
yeah,
given
yeah.
the warning. Now you can share.
Yeah, okay. So I'm sharing as Oops has given the warning, yes. But I think people are prepared, right? Like a mummified cheetah is not supposed to look like anything like a normal cheetah. So yeah, this is the mummified cheetah. And this is, I think, one of those places where we feel like, we make these discoveries, and this gives us so much insight into something that's so old, and we can draw back from there and we can plan from there.
Mm. I feel like I am very much fascinated by the Asiatic cheetah in general, and I hope someday, I get to see one in Iran. That's where Asiatic cheetahs are still thriving, but yeah, 1970s seems so close by. Um, the last
Yeah,
article about the elephants as well. That poaching event started in the 1970s, and now 133,000 elephants. Now it's like one. Such a small period of time, but such a huge impact. I mean, this cheetah might have died naturally, but the reason why there are no cheetahs anymore in um in the Arabian area is Saudi Arabia is because of humans. Has to be,
yeah.
right?
Yep. Yeah, I think I'm just going to go through the article, but I'm just sharing a couple of more images. Again,
Hmm.
same warning, but the left image is one of the mummified cheetahs that they found, and the right image is one of the researchers collecting one of the cheetahs. And I
Hmm.
think here is where you're talking about. The cheetahs were once icons of the Arabian Peninsula. They were gifted
Hmm.
to kings and dignitaries and trained to hunt alongside humans, much like falcons are today, but eventually, people turned against their feline friends and started hunting them for sport. So,
Hmm.
that coupled with the depletion of the animals are the big cats preyed upon, caused cheetahs numbers to plummet across the Arabian population. So, obviously,
Hmm.
yeah.
It's the
Um,
same story for the Asiatic cheetahs that existed in India as well. Um,
Yeah, so for here the humans started hunting them down, and then whatever animals that the cheetahs relied on, they also started producing. So there was no prey, and they were preyed upon. So which caused the cheetah numbers to plummet. So this is sad because they were, like how it says here, once found from Africa to India. Cheetahs now occupy just 9% of their historic range and number only about 7,000 worldwide.
yeah. Um, yeah. I sometimes imagine myself at the time when cheetahs were very ubiquitous in the Indian forests. You know, that's why I'm not too much against the relocation project. Um, you know, but we'll see if there can be a thriving cheetah population in India again. But this would definitely have um, give that insight to to better plan the conservation efforts for the current existing Asiatic cheetah population. Although different countries, but science research is ubiquitous that way. So yeah,
Yeah, so we have to just, I guess, wait and watch on what these genomes will, what story it will tell us. We still do not know how the relocation or introduction efforts will go on. And with the introduction in India, actually, it's not the Asian but the African cheetahs, and
yeah,
the Asiatic cheetahs are very different. Like how it says, there are only a certain places, and the way Iran is going, we do not know when we would actually be able to visit some place like that.
yeah. No,
And
I mean there was a huge uproar sometime in 2023 or 2022 where 8 or 9 conservationists who are working towards protecting Asiatic cheetahs were unilaterally arrested by the government and put into prison without a chance at a fair trial. So yeah, the conservation the state of conservation in Iran is really not great. Not that any other country is any better, but yeah, it's really not particularly not great, and there as well. Speaking of mummification and ancient DNA, another article from the National Geographic says researchers, again, very interesting, researchers recover a woolly rhino genome from inside a frozen wolf's stomach. Look at that. I love human ingenuity, man. When we put our minds to work, we can do some amazing things. Scientists have successfully reconstructed the complete genome of a woolly rhinoceros using DNA extracted from tissue found in a 14,400-year-old mummified wolf's puppy's stomach. My God. Okay, so the wolves at that area were definitely killing woolly rhinos and um, eating them, feeding them to their young as well. Discovered in Siberia, the remarkable preserved Tumat puppy has consumed a woolly rhino shortly before its death. Nobody will know what caused this said puppy's death. This marks the first time a complete genome of an Ice Age animal has been recovered from another animal's remains. The rhino genome reveals the species population was stable in Siberia just before the Ice Age, challenging previous assumptions. Findings support the theory of a rapid population collapse around 14,000 years ago due to climate change. Like, climate change has been the bane of species for such a long time. Two mud puppies, including a sister discovered in 2015, offered an unprecedented glimpse into the past. Woolly rhinos, again, one of the species that are said to have been bringing back. I'm just sharing a photo of a an artist representation of a woolly rhino, definitely not a photograph of a woolly rhino. It was common throughout Europe and Northern Asia during the Pleistocene epoch. Um, yeah, very cool discovery. Um, this is
yeah,
the
I
wolf
think
puppy. Again, warning: this is a mummified remain, so brace yourself. But yeah, this is the wolf puppy. You know, the piece of woolly rhino tissue found inside the puppy. You can see all the hairs intact still. The Tumat one puppy. Um, Yeah, this is like a woolly rhino horn. Such big creatures they used to be as well, right?
yeah, compared to the horns and the rhinos today, that is
Yeah.
massive. It's just like how the shark, like they compare great white sharks to the megalodon sharks.
Hmm.
Everything was bigger, scarier,
Hmm.
and probably more effective in that environment that existed at that time.
Yeah, and it is, and it's s- you know very interesting to think also that modern humans coexisted with these animals. Like, obviously not megalodon, but woolly rhinoceros and woolly mammoths and all the ice age creatures. Modern humans coexisted with these creatures. So, yeah, very
Yeah,
interesting. What our
there's
ancestors would have looked at when they looked out their window or whatever version of the window, you know.
yeah. If you actually go down in the article, there's actually a mummified or a permafrost preserved entire woolly rhino photo as well.
Right, right, right. Ah, that's a very cool one. Right. Look at that. I think the rhino was not that big, but their horns were very big. The
Yeah, the
rhino
rhino.
looks similar sized.
Difficult to tell probably from this photo, but probably the rhino was also big, but the horns were also bigger. Obviously, it's very different
Or
because
maybe
the
this is like a
horn,
juvenile of some kind.
yeah, and the horn is also very differently shaped in the sense that it's going upwards than
Hmm.
it's really going upwards. So yeah, it's
And it
very
is a
different.
two-horned rhinoceros. Um, Unlike the
Oh
one-horned one variety found in India. The face structure looks very similar to today's rhinoceros, though.
It
Um,
does, it does. But I think this is similar to what we talk about when we talk about dinosaurs. Like, what if they were furry? What if they had wings? What if they had feathers? Like, there's no way
yeah,
because the
no,
way.
that definition has definitely been challenged and proven to a certain extent that dinosaurs did have feathers, did have fur, unlike the bald and smooth-skinned velociraptors and things like that we imagined. There has been a lot of evidence supporting that they had feathers. You know, um, and sadly, no fully preserved dinosaur can has been ever found, and think there's slim chance that it will be ever found. Um,
Yeah, because I mean, even this rhino and this puppy that has been found, this puppy itself is 14,400 years old that they found. So that means that we can go back till that far in time to find like a mummified version, but to find something that's 65,000 years old when the dinosaurs were there probably would be asking too much, because we believe
hmm,
that the extinction was caused by a meteor, and
hmm.
probably in that extinction there were no remains left after that.
Yeah, like not, but like certainly not any like fully preserved remains. And there was no frost at that time. The world was very warm and humid at that time, so no chance of a permafrost preserving any of the dinosaur bodies. But very cool discovery. Hopefully, this will and have has taken the science forward. um, but if anyone's hoping that this genome or this would help with the de-extinction, apparently, of the woolly rhinoceros, no, that's a pipe dream at its very best. Um,
And also, I
cool.
mean, these wolves and probably the woolly rhinos died due to climate change, and
Mm,
they were so woolly they wouldn't survive in today's weather. I mean, the flying foxes that are supposed to survive in today's weather are not surviving, so they would definitely not survive.
yeah, yeah. Please save the flying foxes. We don't need to revive the woolly rhinos, um, which nature wiped out. You know. Save the species that do some genetic modification on those species, um to say save them, um you know and that kind of stuff. Cool. What do you want to talk about next?
Let me just find something that's tiny because we have only 10 minutes left. Um, what can we talk about quickly? Mm, okay, so we will talk about. Uh, Oh yeah, beekeepers in Brazil
Mm,
worry lithium mining puts their bees in jeopardy. Brazil's Jacuitin Honha Valley is, I'm sorry if I got the pronunciation wrong, is experiencing a decline in bee populations impacting local honey production. Residents report fewer sightings of both native and non native bees since 2021, coinciding with the rise of lithium mining by companies like Sigma Lithium and the expansion of eucalyptus plantations. While climate change and deforestation are known bee stressors, researchers highlight a lack of study on mining specific effects, particularly in this crucial lithium producing region. This is concerning as lithium fuels renewable energy technology is designed to combat climate change. Farmers and
Mm,
indigenous communities note the increasing rarity of wild beehives, raising questions about the broader ecological consequences of critical mineral extraction and its intersection with global climate goals. And our discussion question in this is, considering bees are the backbone of human survival, how do we balance renewable energy needs with protecting biodiversity?
mm. Do you want to sort of explain why bees are so important to human survival?
Oh yeah. So there's actually a lot of what would you say? Um, that if bees were to disappear, then I think humans only stay for how many more days or
Probably
weeks to the.
a few weeks or months, or little.
Yes. So this is primarily because bees are the pollinators, and bees are the ones that spread the seeds or flower the plants, or they are the
Not the
main.
seeds, but like pollinate the
They pollinate the flowers, yes. So they are pollinating the flowers. So if there's no pollination, then there's no fruits, there's no vegetables, there's nothing that is pollinating unless you're doing it manually. And the
which is
bees are the
impossible.
reasons. Yeah, so the bees are the reasons that we actually have food on our plate. And if we don't have any bees, then basically we lose out on all the plants. Forget about our hunger. We might still be able to survive on meat, but there would be no plants, there would be no flowering plants, the trees, everything. Like nature would go into an absolute chaos if the bees did not
Mm,
exist.
mm. It's quite interesting to think that we say farmers, farmers are producing the crops, but without bees, the crops would be useless, like absolutely useless. No crop would fruit anything, produce anything. And of course, the meat production is also dependent on all the crops that are given as hay to, you know, the cows. Most of the cows nowadays are fed corn. You know, corn is one of the largest produced grains ever in human history, and it is very interesting. Even me, when I found, when I realized this, it had to be a um you know deliberate pointing out by someone else. I think through an article, or someone else pointed that out to me. The importance of bees, you often miss that. But they no none of the crops around the world would yield anything if pollinators disappeared from the face of Earth. Very interesting to think about. Like, we have no control whatsoever over, and people have tried in their, I think it was a pear orchard or an apple orchard of some kind, where they take like those earbuds and they try to pick out some pollens from here and then go pollinate another flower, but that is hugely labor intensive, nearly impossible to do that.
Yeah, and I think the thing here also is that the lithium mining that they're talking about, lithium is important for the batteries and all these renewable products, renewable energy products. So you do need the lithium, but we
Mm,
need to see where these lithium plants have to come up, because if it's coming at the cost of the bees disappearing, that's not a great way for the lithium to be there. So
mm,
you do need the lithium, but you do not need the lithium in that area. So there have to be other areas where you're not impacting the wildlife so like quickly, where
mm,
the because if the bees disappear, obviously the entire ecosystem around that place would collapse. So we need to, I think in this case, the bees need to be prioritized first, and then the lithium mining, we can find another place for those lithium mining to happen.
mm, mm. I think it very well says in a sentence that that's there on the um on the page as well. We know, we have all the evidence, we have the solution for all of these, wildlife conservation, climate related issues. We have the evidence. We definitely, most cases, we have the solution. We just need to take action. That's
Yeah.
that's at the crux of all these different issues. It's just a lack of action, especially the governments, right? The governments have the highest power to, you know, implement and enforce those mass actions.
Yeah, and I think that the problem here also is, Upsa, there's not much research, right, on the effect of these mining on the bees. But the
Mm,
general consensus is that when bees go to these, these uh, nectaring plants, and they collect the nectar, along with that, they bring back, like dusts and traces of pollutants, and they bring
mm.
back those heavy metals that are common in the mining areas back to their hives. So when they bring it back, and it gets kind of inculcated into their hives, and the honey that they produce, it's causing a problem to their health. But there's not enough research to like support this. But the locals are saying that there are lesser and lesser beehives, there are lesser and lesser bees, so which means that there is that is a bio indicator that these mining is what is causing. Because if the changes happen after these mining plants are come in, then they are to be blamed.
They are definitely to be blamed, and this kind of sort of disrupts the natural, schedule, or the natural lifespan of the bees as well. Mines, again, as you, like you put it rightly, like we have to balance that impact. Where is the impact the lowest or close to the lowest? That's where these things are important, but that's where we should focus our efforts on. um yeah.
Yeah, and this is just a picture of the bees, but these are
Mm.
bees that are being monitored. This is one of the person who has the hive boxes and has monitoring the honey production in the area. And this is the honey that's produced. It's actually a very different colored honey. It's dark
Ooh, very dark.
Aurora honey. Yeah, it's dark Aurora honey that's produced in that valley. So it's also different honey, as we know that depending on the bees, the honey and the color variation and the taste, everything is different. So the honey that's produced
Depending
in
on the
India,
flowers, you mean? Depending on the plants.
yes, obviously depending on the plants, but there are no other species of honeybees there, I think. Wait.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, depending on the plants, plants is what affect the color and taste of honey and the medical properties of honey. The bees are just specialists in, can be specialists in looking for one kind of flower or the other. So whatever flowers bees go on, that's the kind of honey that's produced. But color, taste, medicinal properties are affected by the plants. Like we have uh, manuka honey, which is supposed to be very medicinal as well, from New Zealand, which is made from the special kind of bees and the special kind of manuka flowers that actually
yeah,
produce that honey.
it's a combination of both. Like bees are different in all areas, but also the plants that they're feeding on are also different in all the areas.
Correct, correct. Um,
Yeah, so we'll keep you updated on this. If there's a change in the lithium mining, if it is shifted somewhere else, we'll also try to find a researcher, if we can, who is currently researching, or someone who can talk to us about this problem that's going on in the area. But for now, this is the situation, this is the current situation, and we're hoping that the situation will improve.
here's to hoping. Here's to hoping.
Yep. And as usual, this is the closing. This is where we're going to draw close. We would want to know what you thought about our episode today. What is like did the mummification, the natural mummification of cheetahs blow your mind, or was it to know that just like humans, there are just too many elephants in one place or lesser elephants in another place? And What do you think? Like, how much should we protest against the US Mexico wall? Like, do they need to really have bigger places so that at least the wildlife can go through? Do you think there's any other solution other than AI, or having bigger doors, or something else?
Yeah, those are great questions. And as always, if you liked this episode and generally the content we put out, uh, do consider subscribing to our channel, and also following us on all the major social media platforms that we are on. We post updates everywhere. We usually go live everywhere as well. So you'll be able to catch us any of the platforms you follow us on. If you're listening to a recorded version of this podcast, do consider leaving us a rating as well. It again helps with the reach, and share it with a family member who might have the same view as you, who are listening to the podcast, or a different view, just to have you know a couple of views and a couple of different narratives in their um, in their minds and thinking about these kinds of stuff. That's our whole intention of doing this show. But other than that, that's it for today, and we'll see you next Sunday, same time, same channel. Have a good one, guys.
Bye bye.